Welcome back to The Great Transition. My name is Nathan Coutinho, and today we have two special guests, Myra and Brandon. By now, you get the idea behind this podcast series. Given that hybrid work is here to stay, many of us are learning new things about ourselves and our peers along the way. And one of the areas I know we can all do better with is understanding how to make people that have a disability feel welcome and productive. How to make better accommodations so they have the tools they need, whether it's in the office or at home. Many people that may have limitations with mobility, just as an example, for the first time during the pandemic, they were able to network with people around the world. In their own company, via online events, it just opened up the world for them, gave them more opportunities to learn and succeed. We need to keep that going. With that said, let's learn a little bit about our guests. Myra, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Nathan. Very glad to be here.
Thanks, Myra. And Brandon, great to have you on the show as well. Would love to know more about you, your role at CDW, as well as your experience during hybrid work.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Brandon, and I'm a solution specialist here at CDW. And my experience with hybrid work as a coworker on the blind spectrum with cone rod dystrophy is kind of unique, and it's changed over the years. At first, I was excited, or I was bummed to go home because I had my routines in the office. I knew where my desk was. I knew where to go for each task. I knew where specific people sat, and I had my desk calibrated. So when I went home, I had to relearn how to do that. But over the months, over the years of doing work from home, I decided and I learned that this is such a benefit to me. I have the opportunity to create the desk space that works best for me. I have the opportunity to curate the lighting and everything in the house. I also didn't realize the types of things that were super difficult for me to do until I didn't have to do them anymore. For example, commuting to work is exhausting. Finding people in the office, if I don't know exactly where they sit,
Yeah.
especially in the new hotel environment, finding rooms and conference rooms to go to, and all those things add up to be quite exhausting mentally, emotionally, physically. And by the end of the day, every day I used to just be spent. And now working from home, I'm able to live more of a quality of life. I can cater to more of a work life balance practice and contribute to my personal life a little bit more because it's not such a heavy input to just exist in the workplace.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking about is it's never been more leaning toward an even playing field than it is now in a hybrid work experience.
Yeah, see, and that's a big point that I want to make sure people understand, is because the amount of time it probably took you during the day just to get ready to get out the door, let alone get to the office. If you didn't have a permanent workspace, find your meeting room. I mean, it's leaps and bounds, and for you in terms of productivity, and you said it better, your best. Quality of life. Your quality of life is so much better now, which is just, I don't think everyone has really thought this one through, right? This is just one of those big aha moments, definitely for you, and that's why we're on this call talking about it, because I think more people need to understand the. It's not really giving you wings, but it's giving you a whole different quality of life that's just going to improve your productivity and make you a happier, healthier person.
Absolutely. And probably one of the largest things that I didn't mention is working here for 5 years before the pandemic. I had never been in a meeting where I was able to experience the content that was shown up on the screen or the board. So
Oh wow.
just being able to be at my computer during a virtual call, looking at the slide deck and following along without just trying to, you know, figure out context, not seeing any body language in person, blah blah blah. I can really share the experience with everybody else now to get everything out of every meeting and be more productive. It's pretty great.
That's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Myra, tell me about your. I mean, obviously, you and I worked together for such a long time. I hate to say it, almost 2 decades, right? No, now we don't directly work for the same company anymore, but that's fine. We're great friends. But we've both been on the road for a while. We both had a lot of remote work for a while. Clearly, there's some advantages for you, right? Talk to us a little bit more about how it has maybe changed not only your opinion of whether working remotely can work, but also for your peers and company culture, because that's been a big boost in many ways.
It has been, and I mean, I could not agree more with all those points that you just made, Nathan. But specifically, hybrid work environment, I like to kind of follow Brandon's lead, like compare, contrast. Prior to the pandemic, and to be honest, I think it was so much self-imposed. There's a meeting, I have to be in person, I have to be in the office, or to your point, I have to drive 3 hours to the next, main office. And the way that the pandemic has changed that perception, specifically for me, I can, set my workspace in a way that is conducive to, quite honestly, even be more productive. For me, being partially deaf, there are some things that I didn't realize how much they were impacting my ability to perhaps continuously do something or just finish it. For example, in the area where there are multiple seats, like a
Hmm.
bullpen, for example, those types of settings are absolutely not good for me. I cannot concentrate because it feels like there's a lot going in both sides. As
Yeah,
far as conversation, I am trying to concentrate on what I am doing. Being remote, primarily 100% of the time, has allowed me to really, in a way, remove those distractions. I can be more productive, and also, to Brandon's point, quality of life is better. No longer the long drives for a half-hour meeting that could have been an email. I think there's a mug that that has that statement. I I embrace it. It has been helpful, and I think if nothing else, it has taught us. I mean, the pandemic and its ups and downs, we are resilient. We can adapt. We can
yeah.
make things better. And I think this is one of them, leveling the playing field.
I like what you said there. I mean, it makes so much sense. And again, it's not perfect by any means. I don't think anyone's claiming it to be perfect by any means, but we've definitely learned a lot about ourselves and the ways we can do things
Yes.
better. The not being in a car, going to work for like sometimes 4 hours a day. I definitely appreciate that. And I'm sure a lot of people do as well. So I feel like we're making some progress, but where do we go from here? So I'm curious, what would you like to share with employers or fellow employers in terms of hiring more diverse pool of talent like yourselves? You're obviously very, very productive people. I've worked with both of you, are fantastic to work with. We like more of your talent. How can we improve accommodations and making people more aware so that we can better support your thriving careers? Myra, let's start with you and then we'll go to Brandon.
Yes. You know, I can think of a number of things, but the first one that I must mention first is, let's not forget what we have learned in the
Yeah,
way of before and after, if you will, the way that we have more access, the way that we can better plan our time, the way that we can use our tools. This is not meant to be a joke, but some people may think it may be. Working for a technology company, I don't think we learned to use all the gadgets until we were forced through the pandemic. And well, just this morning, trying to get the setup, if I would have happened 5 years ago, 4 years ago, Nathan, I'll be like, I don't know what I'm doing. We just did it just fine. I mean, let's not forget what we have learned. And secondarily, I think that repetition, and what I mean by that is, message to your coworkers the options available, the process, where do they go. It is a benefit. It is a win-win situation. You gain a fantastic coworker, you get the job done. I
yeah,
mean, a win-win situation.
agreed. Thanks for that, Brandon. What are your thoughts? Where do we go from here?
I absolutely agree with Myra. I think a lot of it has to do with normalizing this within the work life culture. I think that's where it needs to start. Is just curating a more inclusive culture. And I think there are individuals that have it nailed down. It just needs to be more of a widespread notion. In the blind community, 80% of adults on the blind spectrum are unemployed. And that's not because of a lack of capability. That's because not everyone has been given the chance. I remember how hard it was for me to get a job. And this is the first place that actually got me through an interview after discussing a disability and confidently saying we can accommodate. And that's super cool to be able to be a part of. And um, it comes, it starts with giving people a chance and hiring them, but it continues with education and enablement and showing those resources on how people can be successful. In my opinion, a good manager has individualized time with each person because everybody with a disability or without needs different things to be successful. And that is valid for every person, maybe especially for people with disabilities. But if they approach it with that mindset, and then I just don't see a flaw there. We were talking about earlier how these disabilities can be a good thing. I was sharing how I feel like I've become more of a creative person, more of a problem solver, more of a positive thinker. And I think that's a direct result of my own experiences. And if I can bring that to the workplace, that can only make it better. And having a more diverse set of people and perspectives with their own talents and the own unique things that they can bring, um, I only see that ending up positively. So just normalizing and investing into that inclusive work life culture, I think will go a long way.
I don't think I could have said any of those things better than myself. So I'm glad you have that great perspective to share. The one thing I'd add, and I've heard this multiple times, and even you, Brandon, you mentioned this earlier, is that during the pandemic, there were a lot more things accessible to you. For example, almost every single event went virtual. So now you could network with people, and you could actually learn, maybe things that you would have never been able to go to, maybe events you would have never considered jumping on a plane and going somewhere, or even down the street, just because of they didn't have good accommodations for you. We need to keep that going because honestly, as events are going back to in person, people are starting to retract the ability to watch or consume some of those things virtually. We're not saying it should be free. We're saying let's cater to the world. Like everyone needs access to be able to get and experience all these events and learn from them and network. So that would be my one thing is that I'd love to see more and more people do that. Some are definitely doing it, but many are going back to the way it was. And we can't go back to the way it was. That's now old school in many ways, right?
Mhm.
So I'd like to thank you both, Myra and Brandon, for sharing your experiences and your advice on how we can move forward to become more inclusive of really anyone who may have some special accommodations. I firmly believe that we have an amazing talent pool now accessible on a global scale. You can imagine all the tools that are available to hire the talent. Almost it's borderless hiring. I like to call it that. I know it's not truly borderless hiring, but I'd like to call it that. And we really need to improve the work experience we provide to each other because it just makes us more successful and more productive. So great to see you both. Thanks again, Myra and Brandon.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Great to have you. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks again. Special thanks to Myra and Brendan, and see you on the next episode of The Great Transition.